Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. I'm really excited about today's video and I don't want to make this a long intro, but I did want to let you know that this video is part of the Try It Tuesday challenge hosted by Sammie over at Unicorn Dust Designs. And I have got 3 really fun spring DIYs to share with you. They could also be just changed up and used for every day, but I'm using them for my spring decor. Let's get into the first DIY. So for this first project, I've got a piece of wood. This came in a pack of just like scrap pieces of wood from Hobby Lobby on clearance, and I'm going to give it all a coat of white chalk paint. You could use any pieces of wood, or you could use a sign like from Dollar Tree, whatever you happen to have. But this Try It Tuesday challenge is where you take ideas that you have been inspired by from other creators and kind of put your own spin on them. And this one came from Emily, and her channel is Farm Charm Chic, and she was using some calendar pages on some wood pieces, and I have some calendars that I just haven't done a ton with, and I really wanted to use them. And when I was watching her video, it gave me some ideas, so I will have that linked down in the description box for you to check out. So once I gave everything a good coat of paint, I actually painted all of the sides and the back and everything. I picked out my calendar page and I began to put some Mod Podge on here, and I'm trying to get better at my Mod Podge skills to not have any wrinkles. So as I lay this page down, I am using my roller that Plaid sent me, and it does definitely help. And then after I did this, I painted the wood piece one day, and by the time I came back to do the Mod Podge the next day, I had totally forgotten what my intention was. So I got this all situated, and then I realized this is not what I wanted to do, and so I pulled it up, and it left a little bit behind, but I was like, well, we're just going to go with it anyway. So I put some Mod Podge down again and repositioned it, and I was able to make it work with minimal damage. So I let this get nice and dry, and then I'm using a sanding block and just sanding down the edges to kind of just is a nice way of like kind of cutting off the edges. It works really well, and you can see here it just gives a nice clean edge. Now this wood is not like fully like smooth all the way around. It's not a perfect shape, but I'm still making it work. So when I was doing the top, I accidentally ripped the top part, which is the piece that I forgot that I'd wanted to use, but I'm going to still work with it, and you can't even tell. So now I'm taking the little part with the words, and I'm just painting on some water around the edges so that I can tear this. I've seen this many places. Most recently, I recall seeing this from Brandy on the DIY Struggle. I think she does it when she was tearing some napkins to do some Mod Podging, but I was like, oh, I bet this will work for this. And it works great, and the torn edge is just kind of blends in a little bit better because we're going to be layering this on top of the other part of the page. So once I have it all kind of cut out, if you want to say it that way, the way I wanted it, I'm going to put some Mod Podge down and lay this down carefully, just kind of realigning the places that I had torn. They would not have torn if I hadn't originally Mod Podge this all in the wrong place. So I'm just carefully placing this down, and then I'm going around the edges with some Mod Podge just to get those edges to stop curling up. And I will ultimately Mod Podge the whole thing, and I actually went around the back and sides again with plaster instead of white because I just thought it went better with the sign, but I don't show that all to you. So. And now I'm going to go in here, though, with some plaster and just dry brushing over it. There was one spot where you could see a little bit of the calendar through the back, and I also just kind of wanted to make sure everything blended together. So I'm dry brushing with a little bit of plaster, and you can see I wiped some of it off with my fingers. And then I'm also going to go in with a little bit of antique wax around the edges and across the whole thing as well. And it just kind of, I don't know, gave that little bit extra of detail, and I felt like it helped everything blend together. Now this calendar page here is the inspiration color-wise for what I'm doing with the rest of the DIYs, but you of course can do this with any page or colors that you want. Now this piece does stand up pretty decently on its own, but the place that I planned on putting it does get kind of bumped into a little bit, and so I just decided to attach some Jenga blocks in the back, or the tumbling tower blocks, with some wood glue and hot glue just to be sure, and I did paint over those as well just so that it looked finished from the back. But here it is. You cannot even tell that the spring is in the air was kind of added on. It blends together so nicely, and I love how this one came out. So I went into my stash. This is more of those wood pieces that came in the same pack as the other one that I bought on clearance at Hobby Lobby. And then I have these paints that I got sent to me from Plaid. This is the, I don't know if you call it, let's say Ceramicoat, but I absolutely love these colors and they really match perfectly with the calendar page. So I was pretty excited. So I'm going to start by just painting each one of these blocks a different color. And I do give it a couple of coats and I do paint all of the sides. If you are not familiar with Sammie's channel, she is the host of this challenge that she puts on every single month, and you will absolutely love her. I definitely recommend checking her out if you haven't done so yet. And she is also where I got some of my inspiration for this piece. So some of the ideas came from the previous video from Emily on Farm Charm Chic, because she'd used some stacked blocks, and these colors came from that calendar page. But when it came to the embellishments, I saw something that Sammie did that I wanted to give a try. So now I've got, we'll get to that in a second. I've got this little welcome sign. This came off, I think, of a fall sign from Dollar Tree. And whenever I take things apart, I just save everything. So I've had this for a while. And I'm taking another color of paint in the same brand, the Ceramicoat, which is also, like I said, by Plaid. And I'm just taking a small paintbrush and I am painting over the word welcome. I had sanded down the welcome piece to kind of get off some glitter and also to fade out the brown a little bit. But when it was all said and done, I kind of felt like the brown was still a little bit too prominent. So I'm going to fix that in just a minute here. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so much. It lets YouTube know that people are enjoying my video. It also lets me know so that I know what kind of things you like to see. And I also hope that if you are visiting here from the playlist, that you will consider subscribing before you leave. I love sharing budget-friendly DIYs. Sometimes it's Dollar Tree items. Sometimes I've been getting into some thrifted items. But I just love sharing budget-friendly DIYs and home decor with you. So I hope that you consider sticking around. So now I'm going to take some plaster by Waverly and I'm going to dry brush over all of these wood pieces. I still have not attached them yet, so I'm kind of going in between each spot and just around the edges. And then I decided that I wanted to dry brush a little bit over that welcome sign because I just felt like the brown needed to be muted. And then I ended up deciding to just go a little bit heavy with the dry brushing and then just paint over the welcome word again and brighten it up again. But now the background was kind of more white or plaster was actually the color. I hope that all makes sense. I was really thrilled with how it came out in the end. I felt like it just kind of all flowed together a little bit better. And then I wanted to add a little bit more embellishment on the welcome sign. So I took this little dotting tool that I have from Dollar Tree and I dipped that in the paint and just put little dots around the edge of the welcome sign. And now we're going to begin assembling this. I'm going to take some wood glue and some hot glue and we'll just attach all of these together. Now they are not finished and smooth, so I really just held it down nice and tight for a minute to try to get it to hold. I'm using my fingers to make sure it's centered. But I was pushing down quite a bit here just to make sure it was really connecting because like I said, these were not perfect pieces. They were just scrap wood. So now we're going to move on to some embellishment, and this is the idea that I got from Sammie and how she did something totally different. She used some scrap fabric to make a bunny's tail on a DIY. So this really isn't the exact same, but it sparked something in my mind. I have this little piece here that I think was a handle from a bag at the Dollar Tree. And I'm just kind of wrapping it and rolling it to make a little like bud of a flower using some hot glue, getting it to the size I wanted. And I wasn't totally sure how this was going to work out because this material was a little bit thicker, so I couldn't really like do a bunch of twisting with it. But I just hot glued it and got it into really just a cylinder, I guess, and trimmed off the bottom and just kind of hot glued in all of the edges to make it look good. And then I took some leaves that I had on hand. I tried to find the smallest ones I could and hot glued them together and put them, and then put the flower in the center. The leaves were still a little bit too big, so I did trim them down a little bit. And I did make 2 of these flowers all together. Definitely check out Sammie's channel and check out that video. She is going to show you a lot better. But it just kind of sparked this idea in me that I might have something that I can make these little flowers for some embellishment. And I like the little burlap color, even though it's not burlap, because it ties in the little bit of brown from the welcome anyways, it all makes sense in my head. So I hot glued down the welcome sign and the little flowers, and that was all I needed to do for this piece. I love how this came out as well, and the colors coordinate nicely with the other one. For my final DIY in today's video, I'm going to take this little wood box. It was one of those cube drawer things from the Dollar Tree. I've previously DIY'd it, as you can see, and taking that salmon color once again, and we are going to paint over this. I just like to reuse sometimes things that I've made that I have. I just wasn't using this. Actually, I recently redid the other one of these. I had made 2 of them. And I was like, well, I'll redo this one as well. So I'm just going to give this a couple coats of that salmon color just to give it, I didn't want any of the other stuff to show through. So I gave it 2 coats. And then I have this little scrap piece off of a sign, I think, from Dollar Tree. And I'm going to just put a little dab of hot glue and then wrap some yarn around this. Now, I saw this recently in a video by Caitlin by Crafts by Caitlin. Goodness gracious. Her name is Caitlin. Her channel is Crafts by Caitlin. And she did some really fun projects using some yarn, and we're making a little stamp. And I thought this was such a cute idea. So I'm just kind of wrapping it around until I get the look that I want. I decided to use the back of the sign where the paint where the paint is going to be, in case I decide I want to use that little sign on a future DIY. I didn't want to totally wreck it. So once I have what I'm looking for, you can do as much or as little yarn here as you want. I'm just hot gluing it down once again. And then we're going to paint it. So I'm taking that same yellow color that I had previously used and putting a good amount of yarn on the, Guys, I am tongue-tied. A good amount of paint over the yarn, and then I'm going to do a practice one and just stamp it here on my craft paper. And I was like, yep, that's what I need to do. So I'm just going to paint that again, and I just put the stamp down twice on each side, kind of overlapping them a little bit, and did that all the way around, and then just lightly did it across the top edges as well. And I thought this is super cute. You could use this on a sign. You could use this on so many things. Anyways, I thought it was really fun. And of course, because I'm only going to share things with you that I think are fun and that I think are cute. So anyways, once that was all done, I did end up coating that with Mod Podge. You don't necessarily have to, but I pulled these flowers. I picked these up from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just cutting them apart, bending the stems and popping them in there. This is going to be up in a place where people aren't going to be able to see it or reach it. So I wasn't too worried about securing them in with like floral foam, but of course, feel free to do that if you think that's going to work better for you. But I was just going to bend the stems and make myself a little arrangement. And I'm going to put this arrangement inside of another DIY that I previously made. I will link that video. It's on my other channel. I used to have it, well, I still have that other channel, but I used to show my DIYs over there. But this cute little lantern is one that I made, and I love it. I love changing it out for each season. I think these came out great. Well, that wraps up today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up because that helps me out so much, and it lets me know that you are enjoying my content. It also lets YouTube know that you're enjoying my content. And if you're new, I hope that you consider subscribing before you leave, and please make sure your notification bell is turned on so you don't miss out on my future videos. Thank you so much for watching. Check out all of the links down in the description box for Sammie's channel and the playlist, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.